Welcome to Shedcast, the shed hunting podcast for all things shed hunting. Today we have Dwayne Jones with us from Shed Season. Dwayne, where are you out of?
I live in north central Indiana.
North Central Indiana. Okay. So coming at us from Indiana, I've been kind of wanting to get him on. Shed Season's a really cool brand. I like to wear their stuff, actually. I mean, I got a Shed Season hat on right now. Actually, you were at the gym and I was kind of picking up my son. We were kind of getting our schedules synced up, and I got a message from the mail saying my hat showed up. So I
Yeah.
went and snagged that from the box real quick. I was
Heck
like, oh, that's perfect timing.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
grab that real quick, and then if you want to introduce yourself, let us know who you are.
Yeah, I am the community manager for Shed Season. And also full-time job is I'm the sales manager for American Pride Outdoors, which is Novix and Half Rack both. So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, man.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, just outdoor, kind of in that industry all around.
Yep, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
And then is that who you went to ATA with then last week?
Yep. So yeah, went with Novix and Half Rack to ATA. It was a good time, always is. In this role, it's a little bit stressful, obviously.
Yeah.
The logistics of the show and planning for it and everything we're going to take and all that kind of fall on me. So it's a relief to have that one behind us, but it was good.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
people will show up at that stuff too, huh? Pretty big event.
Yeah. Yeah. ATA is unique. Like it's, the first time I ever went was 2009. And back then it was massive. We were telling stories to some of the guys when we were at ATA last week where I can remember there being lines like through the entire convention center of people waiting in line to get Lee and Tiffany's autograph, or you name the hunting celebrity, they were there, and it was a huge deal. And it was 10 times the size it is now, but still is now. It's more of like, to me, it's a networking opportunity, right? Like there's a lot of people I don't see most of the year aside from going to shows. So it's cool to go and catch up with them and have dinner and stuff like that.
I mean, everything I see from it looks pretty cool. I just like the trade show aspect of it where you're able to check out all the new stuff or all the stuff you kind of get to see online, but you want to check out in person or kind of chat with those people or those companies. A good little networking event. Plus, you get to see all the cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I get.
You're coming down to my neck of the woods. You're coming to Arizona, huh?
I am. I fly out. Actually, I'll leave home at 4:30 tomorrow morning. Flight at 7, and yeah, go to Phoenix for it's one of the buying group shows. It's called Mid States. So I'll be in Phoenix from tomorrow through Friday evening. So similar to ATA, just kind of a different audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And And you said that's more of like the buying groups, you said? So it's like,
Yes, Mid States is a buying group, so it's more like your farm stores. So like Rural King, Farm King, Runnings, stores like that are all part of Mid States, and their buyers will be there checking out all the new products and your programs and stuff like that.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. How far are you from
Is
Phoenix?
that pretty busy, like all day, every day while you're here or what?
So Wednesday is like it doesn't start till noon. It's like noon to 5, and then Thursday is an all dayer, and then Friday only goes till noon. And then the earliest flight I could get was like 5:30 or 6. So
Yeah.
I'll have some free time in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Nice.
should grab dinner if you're free one evening or something.
Yeah. Yeah. If I work Thursday, Friday, but I mean, Wednesday I'm off. So if anything like that, I was trying to see if you had any time in there, see if you want to glass some small little coos whitetail and see what
That'd be
those kind of,
awesome. Heck
see
yeah.
what kind of country those things live in because they ain't on
Absolutely.
no ag fields.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never been outside of the city of Phoenix. I went to the show last year, but as far as Arizona goes, that's pretty well my only experience.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to get too far out of town. I mean, there's kind of mule deer, there's coos deer, there's a lot of animals kind of all in that desert, so you can see quite a bit with a short amount of time, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's archery season right now. So technically speaking, like our deer are rutting right now, which is kind of
Wow.
cool because then some of the bigger ones kind of, or they're just sometimes easier to find depending on where you're at or how the population is in that particular area. But it is a good time right now. The weather's perfect. So it's not freezing cold. It's chilly, but we've honestly had somewhat of a warmer winter. So it's kind of different this year, it seems, but still I've kind of gotten a little bit into the action.
That's wild to think about. Like here, there's a few different nights where the forecast is below zero, so like high single digits, lows in the negative. So it's
Yeah. I think this morning it was like 30s, maybe at the coldest it's been lately here, specifically like in the Valley of Phoenix, and then like in the 60s. Sometimes it's hot. Like I'm delayering during the day and then like delayering like either morning or evening if you're cutting their glass in or something. All right, it's starting to get cold again, throw another jacket on. But that midday time frame, man, jackets are coming off, it's pretty warm. But we got on a couple bucks the other day, kind of chasing them around. They ran one way. They were kind of chasing each other, so they were kind of more distracted. We just worked and worked and worked, and we got in pretty tight to a spot, and we got around where they were walking into us, and there was a small cholla cactus, and we knelt down below this Palo Verde tree and like shooting through the Y of a cholla cactus through the underneath, because if we stood up, you couldn't get a shot, but we knelt down and we're trying to shoot right through this big opening, and it was like 29 yards. These does were stepping out, and they were kind of looking our direction, not sure, because we were all, we were down tight, so it wasn't like a full silhouette. And I'm just thinking, man, like they're going to bust out of here. As soon as he starts stepping on that tree, I know he's coming. I'm thinking he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop. He stops right in that opening, and I range and shot, and it was 29 yards. We were in tight. And it just shot right below him. And I was like, oh my goodness.
That's terrible.
I could not believe it. I was like, dude, I can make that shot all day. I don't know what happened. Was nervous that he wasn't going to stop. And I should have been thinking about just where my shot was going, and not even worried about that. I should have just cleared all that out of my head and just focused on, I'm going to make this shot. And I just messed it up.
It's tough in the moment though, man. I feel you there. As a resident, do you have to get drawn in these units, or can you buy tag over license? Sorry.
These ones are over the counter. So for archery, you can get over the counter certain open units. There's a few that are draw only now, or they've gone to draws in the past or whatnot, or really sought after units like the Arizona Strip are certain draw only tags, but then the rest of the units are over the counter.
Draw game, like, do you put in for any of those?
I do.
Yeah.
Or I build points. Like if last year I was able to get a mule deer in January, so then I just got points for that season for deer, which is kind of nice too, because then you can hunt and then still build points for a better unit.
It's a long season.
It can be, yeah, it can be, but it also feels like it's really short,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Aside from that, though, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on was obviously shed season is coming up here pretty quickly, so everyone's getting pretty excited, everyone's kind of gearing up and wanting to get out, or wanting to get out and watch and see what's around and see where they're going to start picking sheds up. What's going on with you guys? Are you getting ready for it? Are you excited for it? Any target bucks you're looking for sheds on?
Yeah, all of the above. Typically, come December, you start getting really antsy for it. We don't really get out and start looking until sometime in February at least, typically. But, like here on our home farms, we'll start supplemental feeding as soon as season closes and use cell cameras to really keep an eye on what's going on. And so this year was tough here. We got hit pretty hard with EHD in the summer, lost a ton of deer. And kind of like halfway through the season, my dad and I owned ground that butts up together, and we'd kind of decided to just more or less quit hunting. We both kind of would have felt bad killing one, to be honest, with as many as we lost. And so it was like, well, let's just call this season a loss, and we're going to start running feed and stay out and just hope that, by our farms having no pressure on them. And obviously we plant food plots and stuff. The hope was that the bucks that were still alive would stay tight to us and would make it. And fortunately it paid off. We had a couple of 4-year-olds make it, and then a bunch of younger bucks, and I'm getting them very, very frequently right now. So generally here for sheds, that is, like, the colder it is, the better. Typically they'll really group up. And that's when you'll find, like, if you find a hot food source, a lot of times it can be extremely good. So I'm loving that we're having this cold weather. We buy back grain from the farmer every year and leave some beans or corn standing. This year we got a couple acres of beans, and then obviously I'm running feed and we plant our plots and stuff. So hopefully, if it stays cold like this, they'll likely shed a little earlier, and they'll typically be tight to these food sources. So hopefully we'll find them. So yeah, getting really excited for it. It won't be long. I actually did have a buck. There was I think it's a 2-year-old 10-point, probably like 120-inch type deer. Actually got his eye poked out in the rut. So he showed up. I didn't know him in mid-November and had his left eye poked out to where it was like, draining down his face all the time. And he's stayed here since then. And I think it was last week that we have a food plot right here in our yard. And I looked out and I saw there was a buck. So I got the spotter out and it was him. And he had shed his good side. The other side, he broke every tine off. They're like an inch tall. But he had shed his good side. And then the very next evening, he was on the camera down there and was shut out completely. So that too is like, dang, man, I can't wait. It won't be long though. It's coming.
It's definitely coming quick. So
Yeah.
that's pretty exciting. Not as much pressure. And like you said, have you noticed like any of the late season feeds being better than others? You said you got beans right now, or do you rotate that, or is that like a pretty good late season food source?
Yeah, here, honestly, beans has been the ticket. I had bought an acre of corn last year, and it can be good. It almost has to be really, really cold, but still, like, it seems like if you have beans, they're going to beans over corn here generally. So, but we try to have a little bit of everything. We've got a couple of plots that are brassicas, whether, radishes, turnips, stuff like that. I have a couple acres of clover, which this time of year, typically, they're not fooling with a whole lot. It's dormant, but the beans is definitely where it's at for sure.
And like you said, it seems like they're sticking to those food sources, obviously, and then hopefully, I mean, I'm assuming you have some bedding cover and stuff on your property as well to try to keep them in there.
Yeah, what we own is about 50-50. It's like half tillable, half wooded. And those wooded acres, we do a bunch of TSI and stuff like that. We've planted native warm season grasses and switch and done all the things. So yeah, the hope is that they stay close here. And they typically do. This time of year, they're generally not going too far. So it's exciting and fun. Cameras are blowing up all night, every night. And
it's awesome.
Excited for the season, and then shed season, the brand wise, getting excited there too, getting geared up. We this year will be similar to every year in the past, but also a little different. So, shed season in general has just been all about community. So from the start, it was just like me and TJ were both very passionate about antlers and shed hunting, and it was like, how do we, let's start a platform where you can come to share or consume that type of stuff and just build a community around it and let it grow organically. And that's kind of what we've done. We've come out with the apparel, which we'll have new apparel this year too, just like every year. But normally what we'll do is we'll host a big giveaway. So we partner with a bunch of brands. Fortunately, we've have good partners and have developed relationships with several companies over the years. They've become good friends. And where I said it was going to be different, this year we're going to rely a little heavier on Rack Hub, or I guess make it more visible. Shed season has always been powered by Rack Hub, but Rack Hub has been kind of, back behind the curtain. But they did a giveaway this past fall, Rack Hub did, and it was very, very successful. And it's been around enough years that it's got a lot of pull. And so we're going to use that just to kind of draw, bring more value, I guess. And so we'll do like a 6 to 8 week long giveaway. There'll be 3 winners at the end of it, and got some awesome companies involved with it. So we're really excited for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like everything you guys put out, Rack Hub included. These little sets behind me are both on the RH2s.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of experience like with Nebraska. When I hunted there, it's definitely different than like out here, Eastern versus Western and stuff. So it's still cool to see you guys reaching across the board. Like you said, the community is growing. It's good to see. That's kind of like what I want to do with this. I'm naturally drawn to wanting to learn more about whatever it is I'm doing, and shed hunting included. And so when I realized there's a lot of podcasts about shed hunting, but there wasn't one or many per se specifically to it. There's a big community within hunting, or within that niche of hunting, that love it. We build podcasts and companies around this stuff. So it's big enough to have that, everyone gets together and share all their stuff together. There's so many different stories. I'm sure you can think of tons off the top of your head, different stories on how you found a shed or who you were with, and it's awesome to see all that.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The community around shed hunting is awesome. Like, some of the best people, and there's definitely some guys that are crazy about it. I mean, myself included. Like, I would much rather shed hunt than actually hunt, to be honest. Like, there's just something cool about it, especially, like here on the home farms. It's, I don't know, you like almost build a relationship with these deer, and there's something really cool. Like last year, I killed the first deer I've ever killed here on my home farm, and we had 3 or 4 years of history with them and several sheds. And like for me, we got him mounted obviously, and got an RH2 with his 3-year-old set right next to him. And I don't know, there's just something really cool about seeing how they change over the years, but also using the data from shed hunting to kind of figure them out and what they do year to year. And I don't know, there's just something incredibly cool about it. But hopefully too, I know a hope for TJ and I is like over the years, I would love at some point, we've become friends with a bunch of people out west just through shed season, and would love to get out west. I've never shed hunted out west.
Yeah.
Love to go out and do it and bring some buddies from out west over here and kind of do some of that stuff down the road too. So
that would be awesome. And we definitely have lots of elk, deer. It's definitely different, but I feel like it's worth coming to experience for sure.
yeah, I would,
You know,
to do it.
it's great country. You get out there and where the elk are at, you know?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And that's half the battle, to finding them. I mean, that's what makes it even that much more special when you do come up on one or a set even, you know? It's just, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, I almost can't imagine walking up on a big elk shed or a big set of elk sheds. Like truly, I almost can't imagine it. So it's got to be awesome. Yeah.
Definitely something worth experiencing. So if you guys ever want to make a trip out here, I'm willing, you know,
Yeah.
to
We may have
see
to
what
make
we
that
can
happen.
get into.
Yes, sir.
So you grew up hunting then with your dad, it sounds like, family.
So I started hunting when I was like in my early teens, 13 probably. And actually, have introduced my dad to hunting. So
Oh, okay.
I had an aunt and an uncle that hunted. And as I got older and older, like we would go up there. I can remember kind of what sparked it was we always went to my aunt and uncle's house on Christmas Eve every year. And for them, like they still muzzleloader hunted and they were kind of in the thick of deer season. I can remember seeing the camo everywhere, and you know they had deer mounted, and we would always have venison jerky when we were there, and there's just something like nostalgic about it, and kind of sparked an interest. And like I said, when I was 13, they had invited me up there to hunt in the firearm season, and just of course like absolutely fell in love with it. So over the years, that passion has kind of grown more and more. And actually, so I make a long story short, I had moved to the Carolinas in 2017 for work. I was in the water industry, and they moved my family and I to North Carolina, and I covered North and South Carolina as a sales territory for 3 years. And when we came home, we had decided to like take the leap of faith, I guess, and buy some ground. And from me buying my farm and my dad coming out and seeing it and getting to experience it, he bought the ground that connects to me, and helping with all the habitat stuff is kind of what has helped him fall in love with it. So actually, this year was his first year ever. He's still never killed a deer ever in his life.
Yeah.
Like before we had decided not to hunt anymore, that's literally the only hunting I did this year was sitting in a tree with him and trying to get him on his first, and like, you know, kind of, I guess, teaching him the ropes. And man, it was a blast. I'm sure, you know, in the next couple of years, we'll get it done and it'll be super special. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started for me.
Yeah, honestly, that it is like each deer that you take down is super special in its own right and its own story, you know? The
Yeah.
first ones are definitely awesome too. I mean, the feeling, I mean, you get it every single time. I get that same feeling every time I pick up a shed too. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
it's exciting.
This was a unique first year for him. Like I told him I wasn't going to really set parameters on what he could shoot or couldn't shoot, but he's been around me so long, and he knows kind of what my goals are. So he was not one to shoot anything I wouldn't shoot. And I think it was the very first sit of the year this year. One of the 2 4-year-olds we have is like, I don't know, 100, probably 140-inch 8, upper 30s 8. Like he's a good deer. Dad knew I wasn't going to shoot him, but I told him, like, I'm not asking you to pass him. Like, whatever, if something comes in, you're excited, shoot it. And very first sit of the year this year, we had like 7 minutes of legal light left, and he came in 30 yards. But we were in a redneck, and it was dark enough that he couldn't see his pins good anyway. But I was like, dude, we call him Bobo. And I was like, hey, that's Bobo. Like, but if you want to shoot him, by all means shoot him. He's like, no. So he passed 140-inch 8-point in his first. So
that's a good deer.
Oh yeah, it's a great deer. And luckily he's still around, and we're seeing him daily. So it'll just add more to the story. Hopefully if we get it done next year.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is a lot of work regardless, whether it's a spike or a big giant deer. So it's kind of worth holding out anyways.
Absolutely.
If that's the case, you got to do just as much work.
Yeah, that's right. Heck yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Like I said, each one is special. Both of my kids this last year in 2024 were able to take both of their first deer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Both of them shot 2 mule deer forkies like in the same weekend. And
Oh,
it was just funny because they were almost like identical in size.
heck yeah. I love it.
Filled the freezer. Yeah.
Were they wound up?
Yeah, they were all, I did. My daughter had shot one first. Deer was coming from us. So, and we ended up coming around this ridge and trying to find them again. And boom, we found them again. So we're just kind of trying to get them on before it takes off again. And she was like, my heart was pounding. It was like, I felt a little shaky in the knees after I shot, all that adrenaline.
So awesome.
My son's, he missed a buck at like 100 yards. Then they took off. He was all bummed out. He's like, man, I can't believe I missed. And I'm like, dude, trust me, it happens. Like, it's fine. We're still hunting and go to a different spot. Then we ran into some more deer and got them all set up, and he got a shot. He drilled it. So
That's so awesome.
it was awesome. He was just all excited, because he had just been waiting and watching everybody else fill their tags and just like, man, I just missed. He was on the lowest low to the highest high. It was cool to see.
That's what it's all about. Love it.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. And then from there, I mean, my work was cut out for me. I processed both of those deer. A couple of my buddies helped out, but we processed those things all night. I think my son shot his deer at like probably 8:30 a.m. and then we were a few hours from home, so I had to go back to camp, get it all skinned out, get it on ice, and then get all packed up, get out of there, get home, get over to my buddy's house, and then all three of us process his deer, and then my kids' 2 deer. And then I think I went to bed at like 12:30 a.m. that night. It was just a long day.
Yeah, there's some brutal days.
Yeah, that was
Very
fun.
I'm sure.
So getting back to a little bit of your guys' property or shed hunting stuff. So when it comes to what works for you in the past and stuff it sounds like you're creating with your property, which is awesome too. You're creating late season feeds or even stuff that keeps them year round, right? What would you say for your shed hunting purposes, some of that habitat stuff that you've done? I know we talked about like the late season feed being a thing, but then also you touched on some of the grasses or some of the wooded areas. So in my small experience in Nebraska, knowing some of that edge habitat or obviously the late season feeds are good. And then some of the wood. So it's like, which ones are good to focus on if you have your own little property, and where do you feel has worked for you in the past? What things do you see maybe that are consistent when it comes to finding sheds?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that's a loaded question.
No, it's good though. I could very easily turn this into a habitat podcast. So I'll
Yeah.
do that. That's definitely a huge passion of mine has become. So here on our home farms, obviously food is number one, and you almost can't have too much. It seems like every time I think maybe we've planted too much, they'll eat it. Like this winter, for instance, being as cold as it has, if it stays cold like this, like the beans that we left will be gone in the next 2 weeks, completely gone. So that's first and foremost. If you can plant food or if you can buy back grain from the farmer, that's going to make the biggest difference. But then on top of that, like you talk about edge habitat, that was a big focus for us this year. Where I live, and I would say most of the Midwest, those harsh transitions are super common where it goes from tillable field to woods and that's it. And so like going in and doing edge feathering can make a huge difference. It makes those edges more desirable for deer to be in because they're not in the wide open. They feel hidden. They feel safe. But also too, like even back in, like this is where I've really noticed it helping is back in the woods 100 yards. If you don't have soft edges, they can lay back in the bedding areas and watch and see out through the fields everywhere. And it promotes high stress basically. Like they can see what's going on. They can see other deer. And they don't want to. Like you don't want deer to sit in their bedding area and watch other deer or be able to watch a big field. So we went in and what I would call edge feathering was, we dropped a bunch of trees. So like big canopy trees for us, a lot of maples here where I live. I would fell maples completely. And then we're planting saplings on the edges, but I also enrolled my farm in a CRP program for borders. So we planted a 30-foot wide border of warm season grasses. So rather than you having your flat field to hard woods, it'll more of a gradual taper like that. So that has made a big difference already in year one. A bunch of those areas where we went through the edge and felled maples, like already in the first year, it grew up so thick with briars and brambles and, natural regeneration that where you could look through the woods and see hundreds of yards, now you can't. You can't really see through it, which is perfect. So that helps a lot. And then also just the bedding areas, like I took the first few years to try to figure out where they're already naturally bedding and then just go in and improve those. So whether it's just felling trees or going in and doing hinge cutting or whatever that looks like, whatever we can do to promote and encourage them to bed where they are, but maybe increase that area where more deer can bed there. So all those things have made a huge difference. And then outside of our home farms, like if I'm going to go just shed hunt a farm, that's still what I'm going to do is go find the hot food source. So I'll tell a quick little story here where I live. The two best shed hunts of my life were both on permission pieces where there was a cover crop planted. So a lot of times here, the farmer takes out the corner beans in the fall and they'll plant like turnips or radishes or whatever as a cover crop to, promote soil health. And a lot of times they're obviously highly desirable for deer. So a handful of years ago, we found a field that was, I don't know, 140 acres probably. And they had drilled it to a cover crop. And I knew, I could tell it had been hammered. So like we'd go over there in the evenings or just after dark, and this field was just absolutely loaded with the deer. Got permission to shed hunt it. And me and a buddy found 14 sheds in one day there. And all of them were like decent, like 120 plus. It felt like, we joked about it, felt like some guy took his shed collection and just walked out there and tossed them out. Like it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So 2 years later, which this was this past year, about a half a mile away, there was a different field planted to a cover crop. Seen a ton of deer in it, and I got permission. It was super early. I normally wouldn't go, but my daughter loves to shed hunt and had been asking me to go, and so we went, got permission, and shed hunted this little farm where it was cover crop field, and then next to it was probably 10 acres of what they had planted to trees 10, 15 years ago. So they're 15, 20 feet tall, still in rows, but they're really grassy in between. And we walked this thing for a half hour and found 6 sheds in it. And I ended up finding the biggest shed I've ever found was a single off of a match set that I had found 2 years previously in that other cover crop field half mile away. So yeah, like first and foremost here, I'm just looking for the hot food source. Maybe it's just a shelled cornfield. Maybe it's cover crop. Maybe it's, you name it, whatever your area is, just find the hot food sources. And generally you're going to find sheds there. So that's kind of how we do it around here.
That makes perfect sense. Like you said, adding that safety and security on top of that, and you're going to be in the right spot. Good to know. I want to learn about it. I want to know. For when I did my trials of shed hunting, when I lived out there, I found a match set, actually that one right here that's up here. So a match set, and then just like a single little forky shed in what you would maybe consider a feathered portion of it, where it went from whatever they were feeding on. It wasn't necessarily like a ag field per se, but it was like this big grassy patch up against woods. I didn't grow up with all those like type of habitats. I don't know all the specifics there, but it made sense to me that they were either walking along this particular portion or bedding in these grasses. The woods were blocking from where you come in from the road. There was a bunch of cover there and they could probably hear and see all through there. And then this spot was the first spot that touches the sun, essentially. So it just seemed like the perfect spot, like warm little beds all through there or something.
Yep.
But that's kind of what I gathered from it, But that's exactly like you're saying. It just ties together how important food sources, like you mentioned, a hot food source and good security and cover keep those deer around,
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah. That's another thing like you made me think of. I was going to say, typically when I shed hunt, regardless of the farm, I've just naturally always walked the edges first.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I would say still today here, obviously it's going to be different where you live, but here I would say probably 70 or 80% of the sheds that I've found are on or really close to an edge, whether it's a fence row or the edge of the woods, like I'm talking where a field meets the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the deer are just creatures of edge. So
yeah,
I find a lot of sheds on edges, period.
It almost seems like when you're hunting them too, it's like that's kind of where you're picking them up,
Yeah.
kind of coming out of that transition
Yeah.
essentially,
Exactly.
or they're holding up there, It's like they don't quite want to come out yet and they're kind of holding up there. I mean, like you just said, they're kind of creatures of habit and they kind of do those things. And I mean, it makes sense. They spend a lot of time in those places. Do you have like a lot of predation issues like coyotes and kind of stuff too that you have to deal with, or is it not as,
We have some.
yeah,
Me and some buddies around here are pretty hard on them. That's another thing we get really into this time of year. Is we do a lot of
yeah,
we do a lot of calling,
uh,
um, and various different types. But we're really hard on the coyotes around here. There was
there's a lot.
there is a lot.
Yeah.
When we bought this, so we just built this house last year, and when we finished it, we typically I'll run a camera right here behind the house.
Mhm.
So long story short, last year I killed 10 coyotes in about a 6-foot circle right here behind. So
Yeah.
we're hard on them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The other day I was just glassing and I glassed up 2 more walking into a wash. I'm like, dude, yeah, we need to go back in there and just start going hard on these things because I'm just seeing them everywhere. I'm glassing them all over the place.
Have you ever
And
called?
I definitely go after them. I just don't kill as many. I feel like sometimes they just get that upper edge. I haven't been doing a whole lot of calling lately. I think that's my problem though, because it's more or less opportune. We're like out there hunting and something else, and then
Spot one?
there's a coyote. Yeah, and I'm like, all right, that's an opportunity, but
Yeah.
that you can't pass up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd definitely
We
be
had
making the calls out there, seeing them like that.
I got a Fox Pro, so I need to bust it out, especially right now because I think they go through their own like mating season, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it's right about now and into
Yep.
February.
Yep.
So that's the perfect time to call, right?
It is. Yeah, that's here. Here it's like late February, early March, and yeah, it's the best time to call.
Yeah.
Especially like the colder it is, the better typically.
Till you see one of these desert ones in the
Too bad.
hot summer. Some
Pretty
of them look
looking.
pretty haggard,
Yeah.
You see them all patchy and stuff, and you're like, what the heck is that?
I'd probably look haggard too if I had to live out there in that.
Yeah, they gotta fight to survive with each other. And so what kind of future goals do you have, whether it's shed season or shed hunting? I know you have the property. That's a big thing that you can really lean on when it comes to future goals. You can try things that work
Yeah.
and whatnot. Do you ever put on like a shed number goal, or you just see what you can find?
Not really. I've kind of in the back of my mind there for a number of years, always wanted to find over 20. Like, yeah, we don't find them like some people do here. It's tough. And like I said, unless we have a really hard winter. But honestly, like now that we have this farm, most of my shed goals, rely around finding certain deer sheds. Like I still don't think I've ever found like multiple sets to a deer. A couple of times I've got a set and a single or whatever. So there's a couple of deer this year that I would absolutely love to find their set because I'd have a couple of years to them. And I don't know, there's just something cool about that to me, being able to compare and see how they changed and how they stayed similar and how they grew and stuff like that. So that's the biggest one really. I had one of my best friends brought his daughter out last year, which was 4, I think, 3 or 4, and it was getting late in the season. It was really warm here last year, so we did not find many sheds. The bucks were all spread out. They weren't hitting any one food source super hard.
Mm-hmm.
It made it really tough. But late in the season, they came out and he brought her to walk one day, and we found it's funny, but we found the set to a 3-year-old last year. We hadn't had named or anything, but he had broke off. His one side was literally like a button. It was a base, and he broke it off right at the base. But I saw the one side and called her up and let her find it. And that he found the other side 4 feet away, which I said, like, you would think it was a button buck, but the pedicle was that big.
Yeah.
And that deer is really, really super regular right now. So I'm hoping we can get her out here and find his set again, just to be cool. But
Yeah, that's
yeah, man,
awesome.
I just enjoy finding them here, getting my daughter out. She loves to go. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
That's awesome. And then building that history, like you said, if you're able to keep them around, that means you're doing something right when it comes to your property.
Yeah.
And then the easing up on the pressure helps, I'm sure. Just building that history and then being able to hopefully take that buck later would just be icing on the cake there,
It's a blast. How about you? What's your goal for out there?
I feel like kind of the same. I don't ever put a number goal on it. So this year I was kind of messing with my my Scout to Hunt app, and it has shed goals in there. I can't remember what I put in there. I want to say I put 25 in there, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can exceed that. I actually found 3 already this year, and that's just because I'm out running the hills looking for deer, So, and we're talking pretty small ones, like little coos deer are a different breed. They're just real small, so their antlers are tiny. I found a pretty nice coos buck, real tall, real heavy, still on the younger side. Went after him. It didn't work out on the mountain. It was on this really steep mountain, rocky, dry. I'm like trying to be as quiet. The wind is swirling all over the place. But he had a doe he didn't want to leave. So it was like, he's staying there, so I went after it. Didn't work out. Long story short, I was coming back down and I'm walking to this spot and I'm like, man, there's deer sign everywhere. There's like heads all over them. It's a perfect spot. Then it kind of bowled out and there was another little edge before it dropped back down. It's like perfect. You can't really see in here, especially if you're glassing from the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm like looking and then boom, I just see a shed laying right in a bed. I'm, oh shoot, this is a good spot for sure. So it's kind of cool. So I'm 3 deep in the year at least. So usually it takes me a lot longer to get into it.
Yeah.
Usually I don't find sheds until I start going later in the year, and breaking into that first one always seems to be the hardest for me. It's like trying to break the ice. And then when you finally get into it, it's miles deep in shed hunts. And all of a sudden, finally I got one. I'm like, holy cow. But this year I lucked into getting into it kind of early. So hopefully that sets the trend for the year and keep going up.
Off to a good start. Do you guys find many elk sheds?
I don't know how many I found last year, but maybe like 6 or 7, maybe. I found a set and then a bunch of other like little singles on different ones, some raghorns, some really small, like kind of chewed off older ones, different ones, So
Have you found a big one yet?
I found some pretty good ones. I haven't found a really giant set. The biggest elk shed I found was probably pushing 300-inch bull. So it was a really good shed. To me,
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to discount that being a big bull, That's a great bull. So, and I was pretty stoked about it. I never found the other side though when I looked and looked and looked.
Isn't that weird? I always wonder about that here. Even like
Yeah.
that big shed I found last year is like 75 inches or something, and it's so heavy. You just wonder how on earth do they shed one and not the other, especially an elk. Like,
yeah,
it makes sense. It's crazy.
It's cool when you do find a set because they're not far apart. That's what's hard about that one that I searched for. I'm like, this is the biggest one that I found personally.
Yep.
So far. So I'm like, why is the other one not there? And I found other older sheds and broken off pieces when I was looking for that one just all over the place. But I don't know, maybe I didn't search it tight enough. You never know.
Yeah.
Could still be laying out there.
Yeah, could have missed it, I guess.
Now it's white.
That's right. Exactly.
It's fun to get out and try to play that game, try to figure it out, what's out there now, and then go for it later, So we'll see. We'll see what comes up. But yeah, if you guys ever want to get into it, we could try, see if we can get you guys on some elk sheds.
Very possible. Yeah, very possible. I'm itching to get out there. That's me and one of my best friends this year. Well, we just started last year playing kind of the points game, and it's one of those deals where it seems like for 10 years we've been saying someday we're going to get out west and hunt, and I'm like, man, we got to just do it. Like, got to just get somewhere. So the more I've dove into like, go hunt and doing all the research and stuff, the more I'm itching to get out west somewhere. And that's actually kind of our plan. We may just pick whatever state we think we may get drawn for and just go try to shed hunt here, March, April, whatever. But yeah, I'm itching to get out there.
Yeah, it's an awesome place. I feel like it would be really cool too. We obviously have a lot of great mule deer here in this state too, but it'd be cool for you guys to see the whitetail that we have here, Coos whitetail. I feel like that would be pretty cool for you guys because you know so much about whitetails and habitat, and they do have similar traits. They are still a whitetail. The other day I saw one rubbing a tree, and just kind of going ham on that thing, and it was kind of funny because that was one of the first few times I've seen them just really going hard on this tree, It was cool to see.
Yeah, it's
because I've seen stuff like that in the Midwest, Cool to see that here. It's banging the antlers together and they come in, and it's kind of funny because in Arizona you wouldn't think that as much as like in the Midwest that works, So it's pretty cool. But
it's awesome.
Yeah, if you guys hunt in Arizona, it's a cool place to at least start putting in, start throwing some points because you can probably non-res can probably draw for for low points.
Yeah,
Few years of applying or something, maybe even the first time, depending on where you apply.
absolutely. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome to have you guys out and
Heck,
do a little hunting.
it'd be a blast.
Well, we'll start wrapping it up. I just want to let you kind of put your shouts out there so everyone can follow along with you and shed season and whoever else you want to plug in, other companies you work for.
Yeah, yeah. There's if I go through the list, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Shed hunting related, I would just say definitely follow Rack Up, follow Shed Season. We're the most, I guess, we use Instagram the most of all the platforms. And we'll be really ramping it up here over the next couple of months. Got a lot of cool stuff coming. I don't know whether you know Adam Perry or not. He has Day 6 Outdoors, but he's kind of doing all of our content for Rack Up and Shed Season, and he's one of the best in our industry. So really excited to have him knocking some content stuff out for us. It'll be really cool. But my personal's Dream Dirt. So
Dream Dirt.
Of the three, yeah, that's you'll find us on there.
And that's your personal one, or
yeah, that's personal.
Yeah,
Yep, Dream Dirt.
Do you post about your farm and stuff on that one too?
I
or your
do,
property?
yeah. So yeah, I'll keep this short. But I started an LLC about 2 years ago now to do habitat improvements and habitat consultation and stuff like that. And just
Awesome.
My full-time job at Novix has taken prominence over it, and it's getting to where now like there's an off season right now. I'm in show season and it's really busy. But here come February, March, April, things will slow down some, and really hope to try and get Dream Dirt off the ground. And we got some big projects ahead, and that's definitely where my heart is. It's a huge passion of mine, especially after having my own farm and doing some of the stuff here and seeing how huge of a difference it makes and how rewarding it is. I just want to share it with other people. So yeah.
That sounds like a really cool venture, especially if you really like it. And from the sounds of it, you're doing it right. So it's like cool to see that and to be able to learn from that through this and through watching you in the future will be cool to see. I know you're busy and it's a busy season. You already got to catch a flight first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So I appreciate you hopping on and chatting and throwing some information out for everybody to hear. So we'll wrap it up right here. And thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening to Shedcast. Thank you.